Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
And hello and welcome everyone to MotorWeek Podcast 142. Our announcer Alec Webb giving us a nice introduction as always. Thanks to all of our advertisers as well. And thanks to the folks sitting around the table today in Studio C. Writer-producer Brian Robinson.
Hey there.
Our writer Patrick Lucas.
Hello, I'm sorry for the bizarre camera angles.
Sorry about that. Our cameras, one of our cameras took a dump. Over the Edge reporter Zach Maskell.
How you doing?
And our video editor Joe Ligo, who's joined us today.
Glad to be here.
And we have a lightning round of viewer questions. We'll see if anyone's got anything to add to the rant and rave. First off, though, 3 cars that we've had around our shop in the last few weeks. And we're going to start with what I think will be a universal favorite. It'll be interesting to see if it is or not. The Audi R8. Second generation of Audi's, shall we say, exotic semi-Lamborghini composition. Who wants to start? It doesn't look that much different than the first gen.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I thought the design worked pretty well before, so it's a little taller in the front, a little sleeker overall. The big story is when the R8 came out, supercar level of performance in an easy-to-drive, daily driver, comfortable Corvette-like ease of driving on a track. That was kind of its big thing, and now pretty much every supercar does that now. So
and
it's
the
not
NSX is new, and
not really a
does the
cool
same
trick
thing.
anymore. So it's like, where do they go from there? And they made it a whole lot nastier while still keeping that friendly nature on the surface.
You were comparing it directly to the Huracan.
Well, yes and no, because they are the same chassis. But they're
Same engine too, right?
Same engine and chassis, but pretty much everything bolted to both of those is unique. And we didn't have both at the same track at the same time. But as far as on-track performance, the R8 just feels way, way nastier. The Huracan seemed to understeer a lot more than the R8. R8 is pretty much nailed down and gets a little squirrely oversteer-wise. Tons of power. The gearing seemed better to me, at least on this track. Always in the right gear at the right time. It's just a sweet piece for sure.
Others, comments?
Sorry, you got it.
One at a time, guys. Come on.
The first time I drove an R8 was right-hand drive on Silverstone racetrack, and the thing just, I get it. Exactly what Brian just said.
Right?
Yeah, and I get everything that everybody ever said about that thing. I fell in love with it right away. And the last one we had, I was really a big fan of. And then this one, I still like it, don't get me wrong, but I think I was expecting more this go-around. I think the exterior looks great, but the interior, I think I was expecting to just get in, and I don't know. I was expecting more out of it. But I didn't get to spend as much time in it as you guys did.
What were you expecting in the interior?
Is it too minimalist now for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think I want more out of it.
I mean, everything's in front of the driver, except for, I guess, 3 controls for the vents. That's the only
interior of the future.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I loved about the TT.
Explain what, if no one's seen it, explain what you're talking about.
Visualize it for us,
Yeah,
Patrick.
visualize this, Mr.
Everything,
Writer.
your instrument panel, your gauge cluster is just a giant screen. And so you can play with the setup of tachometer, your speedo, your navigation's in there, your audio,
full
audio
width
info.
Google Earth.
Right, exactly. And so you can cycle between those. You can make, the 2 gauges bigger or smaller. So
is it a touch screen or is it
no?
No,
Not
okay.
touch screen. Everything's controlled with the typical Audi central controller. Yeah.
Also, pretty comprehensive steering wheel controls as well.
Yeah,
true.
more like a Ferrari actually in that aspect.
But I noticed, to get back to the driving, I thought it was just driving around like a parking lot or on the street going to get lunch or something. It was it was easy to drive, like a Corvette. Like it was on the street. It felt very composed, very not soft because it's a $200,000 supercar,
but it didn't have a hair trigger.
Right, like when you drove the Huracan, it was a little dicey, and like even driving it around the street, it made you nervous. And like if you blipped the throttle a little too hard, like you could go crazy. And this one, kind of pretty easy to drive. I thought that was surprising. considering I always consider them to be relatively the same vehicle.
I think I concur with anything everyone said. I thought it was a nice step up from the first gen car. Of course, now you can only get the 10, no more V8.
Yeah, at least for now.
At least for now. I liked virtually everything about it. I do think that they have pretty much forgotten whoever's sitting in the right seat, the passenger, and I'm not sure that's going to go over real well on trips and so forth, since there's they can't select the radio, or they can select it, but they can't see what's going on. So I think in some aspects the interior may be leaving some people a little cold, but having said that, I really don't have a lot of faults with the design. I thought it sounded great. I didn't. Now, when you hit the button for the exhaust to get the sport exhaust of the regular, that is actually a mechanical system, I believe you were telling me. So I didn't notice any real change unless I was really on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a piped-in fake engine noise. I think it's just a flap that opens up in the exhaust.
It was great sounding, though.
Yeah, it sounded amazing.
The other question is, we now have a lot of these cars between $150,000 and $200,000. I mean, the new NSX is basically priced almost the same as the R8. And, of course, there's Huracan and what else? Are we getting pretty crowded in that area? Is there enough market for all of these $150,000 to $200,000 cars? I mean, what do you think? Are we clogging up?
It is getting awful crowded. You're right. I'm not sure there's enough buyers out there for all of them, but I think this one should definitely be high on the list.
Seems like there's a void between the 125 and 150 area. There's not a lot in there. I mean, what's in there? The i8. I mean, for something that's above, beyond the ordinary but not quite exotic. Something.
Yeah. There's like a plateau.
There seems to be a hole in the market.
180,000 is, it's not what it used to be.
Well, that's true, but none of us can afford it. But it is amazing how many of these cars they actually are selling.
Well, I mean, I enjoy seeing them, and I think a lot of people enjoy seeing them on the road. So I say, the more the merrier. I mean, even if they don't sell a lot, and the competition is probably maybe too high, or there's too much to choose from a car fan standpoint.
But
it's
in the
fun
old
to see
days,
all of them.
10 years ago, I mean, if you bought a quote-unquote exotic car, they were rare enough so that it was pretty much guaranteed to at least retain most of its value and maybe even go up. Have we entered an area where these cars are going to be more apt to be bargains, 5 years after they're new because there's more of them? Are we seeing a change in this, at least entry-level area to the exotic car market?
I think with exotics, I'm not positive, but I will say that, with these recent Hellcats and everything else that has come out, it's going to be a lot easier for younger kids to hop behind the wheel.
Of a used exotic?
Of a used...
Or a used super high performance.
Yes, or high performance car. It's going to be it may be a lot easier for them to get behind the wheel.
On the R8, I'm actually surprised. I looked up the prices for the first year, which I guess was an 09 badge car, and they're still getting, high mileage ones are still bringing in $50,000 to $75,000. I mean, I thought that was a lot of money for them.
All right, so another thing, it's a bit of a throwback. It's just all motor. There's no turbos, no supercharger, no e-motors, none of that to deal with.
Which a lot of its competitors do have.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, it's more of a purist vehicle. Okay, that was fun. Speaking of another vehicle and that is known for its high performance, but a brand that is also undergoing a lot of change and is adding a lot of electrics, Porsche. However, the 911 Carrera that Zach, you just drove, still seems to have maintained most of its traditional aspects except for the turbocharger. What'd you think?
Oh, it still drives as you'd expect out of a 911. However, instead of only opting to get the 911 turbo, now pretty much all the 911s are twin turbocharged. Yeah. So you can go with the base Carrera. It's 370 horsepower at 13 psi, and then the S has 420 horsepower at 16 psi.
That's a lot of boost.
Yeah, it is. And Brian just told me about something that I was actually unaware of. You can press a button, I guess, and get even more boost than that for a limited
in the
amount of time.
PDK only, there's like a push-to-pass button that you hit it, and it gives you max boost, and it turns all settings to max sport for 20 seconds.
So,
So
not
you
sure
just so you
exactly
can
how
blast
much boost
by
that is,
that
but,
semi.
I mean, that's awesome. And one of the things that I wanted to make people understand, if they didn't really have a grasp on it, my first look was, oh no, they're not naturally aspirated anymore. But that it's not a bad thing at all, because Porsche's goal here was to get more horsepower while getting better fuel economy. So yeah, they're 3 liters now as opposed to the old 3.4 and 3.8s. But you're going to be able to get more horsepower out of these things a lot easier than you would have been before. They're going to be easier to tune. Shops might have an easier time working on them. Maybe it'll save you money in the long run. I don't know. But I can tell you the things that blast to drive, I think it sounds great. I mean, no, it doesn't sound naturally aspirated. A trained ear is definitely going to hear the turbo whistling. But I think it sounds awesome. I love it. I say turbocharge everything under the sun as it is.
I think that's where we're headed, either turbos or supers or electric motors and just about everything.
It still revs out. It doesn't redline. I think it's 7,400 RPM. So it's still got that traditional.
All right, if I'm a traditionalist, I say, but what about turbo lag?
It's not
there. Wasn't it?
You get full torque, very early. I mean, I challenge somebody to put some earmuffs on and then go drive the car and tell me if they can really notice that big of a difference. Porsche nailed it. The car is awesome.
Yeah, I think they have like a when you go into a corner and you let off the throttle, it has electronics that maintain the boost.
The boost stays up.
Yeah, so there's no lag at all. As soon as you get back in the throttle, you get full.
So there's
full
like
boost.
an electric motor attached to the turbocharger.
I'm not sure.
I think it's how they manage the wastegate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think there's an electric motor doing anything at all, but.
Not
Yeah,
yet. That's coming, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, because Audi had some kind of electric supercharger type thing. Didn't they?
Porsche is all about electric augmentation, but they haven't messed with the 911 yet. Okay, thanks, Zach.
Nothing to fear, basically, right? That's
Yep.
how we
Yeah.
sum that up.
To sum it up, I absolutely would not fear it. Drive one if you get the chance, and then let me know what you think.
Let's move on now to a beast of a different color, the Titan XD V8 Gas. This is the gasoline version of the XD Titan, which, of course, is the one we had driven before. It was Cummins diesel V8.
Diesel.
I guess the best way to ask this question is, do they really, they got this great Cummins V8 diesel, which I think universally we thought was quite a nice truck. Do they need this engine? Do they need a gas V8? What is its purpose?
Well, I think it was. I don't know its purpose.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the purpose.
Cheaper, better payload. Probably about. I think it's roughly 500 pounds over the max payload.
Did that
diesel.
surprise everybody? I mean, normally you think the diesel would be a higher payload,
Well, it's
more
higher
capable.
it's higher tow capacity, but less payload. Because I was actually talking to Brian before we came up here. Apparently, according to their charts and their spec sheets, the diesel engine adds almost 700 pounds.
Okay, very heavy.
So
Well, it's a real diesel,
and that's
so.
not all engine, because obviously it could be transmission and suspension and stuff like that. But for the V8 gas, I don't know its true purpose. I don't think they had to do a lot of work to it, because it's a carryover from the current gen Titan
Engine.
The engine, yes.
Yeah.
And they're
going to offer it in the slightly smaller
in the next
Titan
gen
anyway.
Titan as well. And they did do a lot of tuning to it. Horsepower is way up. I think it was low 300s. Now it's up to 390. Torque's up a little bit to 401. I don't know. The biggest takeaway that I got from this drive, and from having been exposed to the V8 turbo diesel as well, is that for such a big truck, very smooth cruiser, a little more capability than a half-ton truck, drives like a half-ton truck, very smooth, very quiet, very comfortable. If you go like higher up in the trim levels, it's really nice inside, and it's still relatively cheap. So, I mean, I think it's pretty much your only alternative in this sort of in-between range, in between a half-ton and three-quarter-ton, but it's not a bad option.
I think they've been very smart to identify the hole in the market.
It's certainly been smart to draw out. They came out with a diesel, then this one, then the regular Titan's going to come out. It seems like we've been talking about it nonstop for like the last 6 months.
And probably will for another 6 months or a year.
Certainly smart in that regard.
Yeah. I have noticed some of my neighbors who have been driving 3/4 ton diesels forever. They're going to gas. And I thought it was very odd. And I asked a couple of them, and they've had some problems. And, of course, the price of diesel fuel, which was way up and is now down, was kind of putting them off. And they don't use the full capacity of the towing that diesel can give in a big truck. And so, I don't know. I mean, I think that they're very smart doing a gas V8. I think there's probably more of a market there than people realize. But these working guys that use their trucks for work and play, I'm seeing more and more of them moving back from diesels to gas.
I think part of it is the tow ratings capacities have gotten so high that there's less of a step up. I mean, it's to the point now where it's more about frame and structural integrity, not power.
Not power.
I don't think. How much more does the diesel tow? It's not even 1,000 pounds, right?
It's just over 1,000, but even still.
So
that's not a lot.
Right. It used to be, 4,000 or 5,000 pounds difference. Now the V8s pretty much tow, the gas pretty much tow the same. So there's less reason to step up to the diesel, really.
We talk a lot about fuel economy on the show and on these podcasts, and I do still wonder what's going to happen to the V8 and the pickup truck. Ford's been very successful at putting like 60% of the F-150 buyers into a V6 turbo and non. And I wonder if this will be like the last gas. Who knows? We've been talking about the demise of V8 for 35 years. Nice truck. Thanks very much, Patrick, for that report. Let's move on now to our lightning round. Whoops. I'm sorry, Jim, our audio engineer. I just smashed the microphone with my hand.
Smash. John Smash.
Here we go. We're going to talk about this topic that has been trending, and we're not talking about Facebook trending, for a while. Once again, Takata, the airbag folks, are in the news.
Trouble.
We've covered it before, but the airbag recall just keeps growing and getting worse. Does a large-scale issue like this concern us about the quality of other manufacturers or equipment suppliers' safety parts, I'll add? Will something happen like this happen again soon? Boy, that's a tough one. I think anything that's made by man and is probably managed by somebody looking at balance and profit and loss sheets runs the risk of having major failures that can backfire. But I don't know, this is a pretty big. We're now talking about 20% of all cars on the road having possibly at least one or more Takata airbags that need to be replaced. I'm not sure outside of brake linings if there's anything else from a single manufacturer that would be spread that far and wide.
I was about to ask you, if we could step back in history, has there ever been anything like this? Ever?
The only thing that that's a very good question. I think two things. Number one, the side gas tanks on early General Motors pickup trucks, where there's still a debate on whether they were really as vulnerable as they appeared to be on some of the videos that were done. And the other thing would be, the gas tanks on Pintos. But again, I don't think that was anywhere.
But that wasn't third party. That was Ford itself.
Ford itself. But you could also argue that whoever made the tank didn't make a very good job. I'm trying to think. Is there anything
Firestone
else?
Tires, but that was pretty much just Explorers.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It was mostly Explorers, but there were some other vehicles involved. But maybe the Firestone tire is the closest. I'm not sure there's been anything quite this huge. Ford had problems with, for many years, like over a decade, they had problems with cruise controls jamming way back when.
And then
Lucas Electrics.
Well, but they've not generally had something this widespread.
Nothing wrong with Lucas's. I think my question is, do you think that this is just like a horrible oversight or corner cutting by Takata, or do you think this is like a mistake that could happen in anything, anywhere?
I think that when you do your testing and you design something, you cannot simulate long-term wear no matter what you do. The aircraft industry has been famous for this. Nothing gets tested to its limits more than a new aircraft. Mm-hmm. And yet, 10 years after it goes into service, 15, some fault comes up that nobody imagined, and there's lawsuits and recalls, and the planes get grounded. And I actually think everybody did their job. It's just stuff happens. Life can't be duplicated in a laboratory. Now, you could make a point that they chose to go with a cheaper propellant than some of their competitors did, and that there is evidence that Takata knew early on there might be some issues. But my understanding is, even to this day, they're not 100% sure what's going on, except that this seems to happen in humid climates. And what bothers me about it is that a lot of the cars are having their airbag replaced with an airbag that of the same design and the same propellant, because there's not enough replacement airbags to go around, and they're just sort of hoping that the car will get scrapped before this one develops the same problem.
Yeah, I looked up my car because I got scared. Thankfully, it's not on the list.
Well, I'm not sure the list even now is complete, I have to tell you. Anybody remember the website that you go to where you check to see if your car's got a Takata airbag? I know you can go to safecar.gov.
Yeah, that's where
which
I
is
looked.
the federal website, and put in your VIN number where you'll see it noted, and check and see if your car is part of the Takata recall. Or call the dealer. That's the other thing you can do. Thanks, Patrick.
Don't call the dealer. They'll try to sell you a new car. Get out of it immediately. Get in here.
That's right. It's dangerous. You shouldn't be driving it, and maybe you shouldn't. Okay, let's talk about a viewer question we get a lot. We get lots of emails and comments about extended warranties, whether they're worth the cost, which ones are reputable, and what do they cover. What do we know about it? I can give my 2 cents, but let somebody else start first.
I don't even have 2 cents worth, so someone else.
I think you got to remember a couple things about extended warranties. They're a way for dealers to make lots of extra money, so they are negotiable. Whatever price they give you, deal with them. If you want total peace of mind, fine, but know what the warranty comes on the vehicle first. I mean, I just had a case where someone was offered an extended warranty on a 2-year-old car, and the extended warranty really didn't extend much beyond the new car warranty that was still in effect.
Right, yeah, because aren't most new car warranties are like 5 years?
On the powertrain,
7 years.
typically 5 years, 60,000 miles, and 3 year, 36,000 miles on the whole vehicle. So know what comes on the car first and what you've got, then make your decision. Remember, they are negotiable. But here's, I remember Pat Goss often talks about this. Here's the things that I think is most important. Look at the sheets of paper that they give you about the warranty. It should be a warranty. If you're buying a car from a dealer, and it doesn't matter what franchise, XYZ franchise, the extended warranty on that used car or the new car should have the manufacturer's name on it. It should come from the manufacturer of that franchise.
Not like a third party.
Not like a third-party insurance company. That way, if you have problems, you can go to the dealership, any dealership from that franchise, and get it fixed. Make sure that's possible. That's kind of the main thing. Otherwise, you might get a warranty that you only can get fixed at that dealer, or you have to pay for it yourself and get the money back.
Do you know, or does anybody know anything about, like, let's say you're buying a used car?
Yeah, that's actually what I was talking about.
I mean, like a used, maybe not from a dealer necessarily. Can you just buy a car from like a private owner and then look out somewhere else? You can go to a dealer
well, you can't go to a dealer that I know of, but you can. There are a number of third-party companies that sell extended warranties.
But you're saying they're not nearly as reputable?
Well, you have to read the fine print. What you have to know going in, that chances are what you'll do is pay for it and get the money back. Some of them, though, have networks of repair shops all over the country that they will, that will fix your car and will bill them directly. So it sort of depends on the company, and
they exist to make money, for themselves.
They're insurance companies.
Keep that in mind.
The extended warranties are sold by insurance companies, one way or another. So peace of mind. If you think about what it costs to repair an engine or a transmission, it can be $3,000-$4,000 in the blink of an eye. So keep that in mind if you're going to keep the car a long time. But know what the warranty covers. Okay. Rant and raves. Anything particularly on their minds?
Oh, I know that Jim Bigwood sent me an email.
Oh yeah,
after the last round of podcasts.
Jim is our
audio
engineer who makes us sound really intelligent when we're not. There he is. The voice of God is coming down.
So maybe Jim,
go ahead, Jim.
Jim, you can correct me, or you can just say it yourself if you want.
Jim from Mowing Smells, go ahead.
All right, basically, I think his rant was he was driving to work, and someone wasn't paying attention, coming the other way on a 2-lane road, and came over the yellow line and almost hit him, and so he had to swerve out of the way. And just, general driver distraction. You guys noticing it a lot more these days?
It's rampant.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
It's just rampant.
And it's scary.
If you don't drive defensively the whole time, you're going to get in an accident.
Yeah, you constantly see people weaving, looking at their phones, and then the worst is the sleepers at the light. Because, you're sitting behind them and they're playing, whatever their Candy Crush or
recently,
texting.
I've been honking my horn, like, as soon as the light turns green. I'll give it just a little...
And you see their head pop up.
I wonder how long it's been green for.
Right.
But, gosh, everywhere, man.
I
some
don't
scary
know.
stuff.
I don't know what we do about it because this, nothing scares me anymore than crossing over the yellow line when you've got no place to go. Now, Brian and I, you don't travel Route 140 in Maryland as much as I do. I think you take the back road home. We both live out in the same direction. We have a 4-lane highway that has no divider, and everybody's going 60-plus miles an hour. And you see that so often, and there's been quite a few deaths on that road over the last 10 years. And so it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if ironic's the right word, but it's certainly off-putting that they're passing all these cell phone laws, and it doesn't seem to faze people in the least.
Because it's unenforceable.
I guess. It's not a primary offense yet, or what?
Well, no, I think without having a
is.
cop standing on every corner watching.
Yeah.
The other day on I-95, they had cops in dump trucks. Dressed as dump truck workers. They pulled over about 200 people or something.
No
They
kidding.
wrote like 100 citations, like 80 warnings. Yeah, so they were definitely out in force the other day. I'm not really sure how I feel about that, but I mean, texting is a big deal, so I'm almost for, more enforcement when it comes to that. So
I find that there's not much you can't do with a cell phone by voice if you take the trouble to learn how to do it. I have used that a number of times, although I'm not completely sure. I think actually even having the phone in your hand is basically a viation of the law in our state here.
Put it in your pocket and wait till you get home.
Wait till you get home. Nothing is
how
probably
long
that
are
important.
you driving that, anything. That's part of the problem is everyone is a right now society right now, and it's like, really, do I need to answer that right now? I can't wait 15 minutes.
Do I need to tell you what's up?
Yeah.
Can I tell you that now?
Just passed that shop that's got a sale right now. I can't wait for you to come in and spend money.
Nothing much, just driving.
Running somebody else off the road.
Yeah.
We're laughing, but distracted driving, I believe, is now the number one cause of fatalities and traffic accidents. And frankly, it's probably going to get worse. Eventually, and I'm surprised that this current administration hasn't already done it. They were talking about putting a chip and requiring a chip in the phones that basically when you were in motion, they wouldn't work. But of course, if you're a passenger, what do you do then? Right. So I think that's probably why we didn't see it. Okay, thanks everybody for that. That was a very good one. Thank you, Jim. And we're glad you had the presence of mind to weave out of the way.
I was glad I had someplace to go.
Yeah, that's the other problem when you've got no shoulder. Okay, I want to thank Jim, our audio engineer, also our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, our podcast producer, Patrick Lucas, the guy with the bell, who's also, of course, been one of our contributors today, our writer-producer, Brian Robinson, our over-the-edge reporter, Zach Maskell, and our video editor, Joe Ligo. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day, and we hope you were either parked or certainly didn't have to hold the phone up to your ear the whole time to listen to our podcast. This has been 142, and thanks always for watching MotorWeek on both public television stations everywhere and our friends over at the Velocity Cable Network. I'm John Davis. For all of us at MotorWeek, be safe out there, and we hope you'll watch us and listen to us again very soon.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.